Welcome to Ultralife Today. I'm one of your hosts today, or should I say, I am the host today because Adam Payne is off doing CEO things, so he'll be joining us for another podcast sometime soon. Before I introduce our guest, a little bit of housekeeping here. Do you love what we're doing? Subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating. Help us beat the big tech algorithm. If you love what we're doing, if the content is relevant, if you think of a friend or loved one, share this with them so we can grow this audience and continue to visit with you week after week. Now, I'm going to set us up a little bit before I introduce our guest, and that is this. It's a time of year that's very stressful. It's a time of year as well. You'd think joy, peace, love, blessing, giving, holiday seasons, people honoring their faith. And yet at the same time, you have so many individuals thinking, oh my gosh, bite my fingernails, January is coming. I'm going to have to make a New Year's resolution. Yes, I said the R word, and I hate that word. The reason I hate that word is because if I say resolution to 10 people I meet on the street or friends of mine, guess what they're going to say? They're going to say, I feel guilt. I feel shame. I feel a sense of failure. I haven't made it. Now, you'll meet that rare individual that just has that type A personality that nothing stops them. Guess what? They are rare individuals. So what we're going to do today, and how about this for some confusing words? Keto, paleo, Mediterranean, vegan, vegetarian, carnivore. Some of you know enough to be dangerous about those things. Some of you are totally confused when I mention that. You've either avoided reading about them or you've read just enough to be dangerous. We're going to try to demystify some things today by talking about diets, and we're even going to talk about what the word diet really means and its original root, because I think it's going to help shift your mind into something more positive. So without further ado, I've got my friend and a friend of Ultra Botanica's, Keith Bishop. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Okay. Keith Bishop, by the way, write this stuff down now, or remember it's right at the beginning so you can go back and find it. Keith has a website called prevailovercancer.com. Keith has some very interesting background as a clinical nutritionist and a retired pharmacist. He's been studying for decades now about dementia, Alzheimer's, cancer, and trying to facilitate how do we find out the root cause of those, and through diet and supplementation and lifestyle changes, make a difference in our life to get that optimum peak health, bring us back into homeostasis. So, Keith, you mentioned something to me off the air that I thought was fascinating. Oh, and one other website, because we are going to be talking about eating today, supplementation, support that kind. FlourishRx.com. That's FLOURISH, like the word flourish, with a flourish. FlourishRx.com. Write that down. Write down prevailovercancer.com. You'll find all kinds of free information on Prevail Over Cancer, a way to get a hold of Keith personally, as well as on the Flourish website also. Keith, you said something to me a little while ago. You said, what does diet mean? And did you say Latin?
I believe Latin.
Latin, okay.
The word.
Tell us again what that actually means.
Diet means way of life.
Okay, did you hear that, people? It no longer has to be something you fear, you dread, you think about failing at. It can be something that you shift, and I'm a person that don't try to eat the apple all at once. Eat it one bite at a time. Mm-hmm. So we're going to try to shift your mind a little bit today into thinking about diet as a way of life. I like to say it this way. It's not an event, because if it is, you're going to have horrifying events afterwards to gain all the weight back and the health problems that you have. But it's more of a lifestyle, right, Keith?
Correct. Exactly. It's making little changes and continuing that, and seeing what happens, and then making another little change, and but keeping after it all the time. Don't make a drastic change. You're going to set yourself up for failure.
Yeah, I was one of those all or nothing people pretty much throughout my youth. So the pendulum was either way over here or way over there. It never rested in the middle. And I'm like Mr. Miyagi to Daniel's son, balance, Daniel's son. I've learned the balance. The pendulum doesn't swing too far. Life is so much better.
Right, exactly. So when a client comes into me, they have to fill out a food list. Okay. So my goal is to improve upon what they're doing. Right. Rather than shifting them to a totally different, what I might think would be perfect. It may not actually be for them.
Right.
Because they may have 40, 50, 60, 70 years of eating a certain way.
Yes.
And trying to get them to shift in that, it's not going to work.
Right.
So I always try to help improve upon what they're doing.
You know, our friend Kyle Drew, I was talking with him about different diets the other day, Kyle Drew of Super Health fame. And it was interesting because he said, you know, Josh, how I try to help demystify. And so I'm going to throw something at you that's not even on our list of questions.
No. Okay.
So
hang on.
Yeah, fasten your seatbelt. He said, you know, I like to try to help people understand diet as a lifestyle by starting out by saying, as opposed to going, here's keto, here's paleo, here's carnivore, here's this. He says it's what to leave in and what to leave out, to quote Bob Seger in a very famous song. So what are your thoughts there when you think about these different diets? Is that a good way to think about it? Hey, there's things I get to include. There's things I get to exclude because maybe those things that I get to exclude are causing me the pain in my body, the inflammation in my body, the fatty liver disease, the cardiovascular problems, the consistent UTIs, whatever it may be, right? I mean, eating has how much of a, what would you say as a percentage when a person can actually shift into what you and I would really consider a very healthy lifestyle of eating, how much of that would you say really influences their health, Keith?
Oh, well, everything, because I handle all kinds of health issues.
Right.
And the first thing I talk about is what they're eating and how well they absorb it. And so we have to make those food changes, and it's probably 90% food, 5%, maybe lifestyle definitely can be a factor too, at least 5%, and then perhaps supplements.
Okay.
And so that's not always my top thing, although they can be important.
Right. And may I ask you this too, because I know you have a vast amount of supplements in your arsenal. I've often looked at supplements as something that can be utilized therapeutically for periods of time to help facilitate as one is changing their diet to really alter things like brain chemistry, hormonal response in the body, the microbiome, things like that. So, but you've got it way down low. We as Americans, as you know, we're used to being dispensed pills. You're a pharmacist. You remember that.
That's right. We want to fast.
You probably filled more prescriptions than I can, higher than I can count in my life, right? So, yeah, we want it now. We want to get the drive-through, mentality. Boom, boom, I'm there, ready, to do my thing. But you mentioned only 10%. Do you see supplementation, though, with the standard American diet? We've got environmental exposure. We have water problems. Even when people are drinking healthy water, oftentimes they're drinking it out of bottles that are creating endocrine disruption in their body, right? So even potentially changing men's hormones as well as
some
women's.
estrogenic type issues.
Exactly. We know that the food that we eat, I'm going to throw out some things. This may or may not be a shock to you. I happen to know a really cool lady. Look her up, Zen Honeycutt. Moms Across America, I believe, is her organization. They recently did a bunch of tests of restaurants, okay? Guess what the number one restaurant for glyphosate in the food was?
Oh, I don't know.
It's going to shock you.
I don't know.
It's Panera.
Oh.
Yeah. So, by the way, on their website, Moms Across America, you can go and file a petition, because if we could get Panera to change what they're doing, a lot of other people are going to follow.
And
I love Panera.
There's another company that they made a lot of changes, and I believe it's Chipotle.
Okay.
And they were trying to source their foods and be healthier and things like that. And then actually government officials came in and really started giving them a hard time. So there was something going on in the background that we don't understand.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of conspiracy type issues. And
there is that end of it, and that is so disconcerting, but yet it is legitimate. Now, I learned something recently. I'd heard somebody say, "Oh, don't believe the verified non-GMO project stuff," and I was like, "Well, why not? I thought that was really healthy." And a few months back, somebody said, "Well, dig into that." And so I dug into it, Keith, and here's what I found. Non-GMO verified food does not mean that it doesn't have glyphosate sprayed on it. It does not mean that it doesn't have pesticides sprayed on it. And I found out something the other day that just horrified me, and that was that to dry many of the grains, fruits, and vegetables that they pull from the field, legumes, things like that. Guess what they spray on them to dry them?
Yeah,
Glyphosate. Yes. So sad. I mean, it's listed, it's well known as a carcinogen. So we've got to change the way we're eating. And it's going to have to be, I hate to say this, people, there's going to be some pain attached, but I do have to say this. Keith, for the first time in my life, a guy that stays slender, pretty easy for me to exercise, include that. I like to include healthy things in my diet, but I'd really begun to develop some pain and stuff in my body. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to go all in on a therapeutic keto diet. Do you know the pain levels in my body within 1 week were totally different when I shifted to that? I bet you hear this all the time, right?
Making a dietary change. And it's not always just keto, but
exactly.
there is a certain food, and so whenever many years ago, I did the blood type diet.
Okay.
Familiar with that?
I do. I kind of remember that.
That was a long time ago. And so, so I removed dairy, and wheat. I felt so much better.
Amazing.
I had less allergies and just by removing those two foods, less skin problems, rashes and itching and things like that. So that was kind of like the first kind of like a major change that I did. It was amazing. Didn't have to take allergy pills anymore.
Yeah, it fascinates me. And before we go into this next segment, I'm going to kind of set it up, but something I've learned, Keith, that has been hard for me to, own up to in the last especially 8 to 10 years. I've realized for years I was dispensing information to people more in a one-size-fits-all mode.
Oh, yeah.
And I have learned, and you tell me if I'm right about this, I have learned that everybody is vastly different.
Yes, exactly.
It's genetics, it's lifestyle, it's so many factors, so many variables in there. Yeah.
Even within a family.
Yeah.
I have mother, daughter, husband, wife, siblings that come in, and each person is unique. There are special needs for each person. Okay,
in this next segment I'm going to set this up again. We're going to talk about, as much as we can fit it in the rest of this hour, paleo diet, keto diet, carnivore diet, Mediterranean diet, maybe talk a little bit about the difference between vegan or vegetarian. The buzzword is plant-based. You've heard plant-based. So we're going to get into that. Thank you so much. This is Ultra Life Today. We will be right back with our special guest, Keith Bishop.
Our mission is to take nature's most beloved botanicals and enhance them with our liquid protein scaffold technology. This helps it reach your cells faster and better. With exponentially enhanced bioavailability, you'll feel better every day. Ultra Botanica, the feel-good curcumin.
Welcome back to Ultra Life Today. I'm your host today, Josh Bellew. While Adam Payne is out doing CEO type things, but I've got a friend in the studio. He's a retired pharmacist, a clinical nutritionist. Check out prevailovercancer.com. Everybody these days I'm running into, and I mean this, it's not just a 1 degree of it's not just a 3 degrees of separation. I run into people every day that are dealing with a loved one or a friend that is suffering with an active cancer. There's a lot of free things you can learn about diet, stuff like that will benefit you, and perhaps you'll want to even talk to Keith Bishop. Prevailovercancer.com. And then Flourish RX, under the Flourish label of Flourish Pharmacy here in Oklahoma City, and that's FLOURISHRX.com. You can actually learn more about metabolic health there, testing for, you're overweight. You want to shift your diet, which we're now going to begin to refer to as a change of life or a lifestyle or a way of life, so that it seems much less threatening. But anyway, here we are again. Let's dive into some different diets, and welcome back, Keith Bishop.
Great, thank you.
All right, brother. So let's start maybe with the one, I jokingly said to Kyle Drew one day, I was like, well, there's the ketogenic and then the repeatogenic, because it's like there's always these offshoots of all these different diets. But with that philosophy of what to leave in, what to leave out, maybe 30,000 foot view, what's a ketogenic diet?
Ketogenic is going to be more of a higher fat,
Okay.
And it can be 60.
And would that be healthy fats?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So we don't want hydrogenated oils.
Correct. Not
we don't want
hydrogenated and
rancid oils
margarine and
yeah. Okay,
you know,
good.
and so yes, it's going to be healthy fats.
Okay.
And like 60, 70% fat.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
the body can function with fat, can burn fat for energy. And then maybe about a 20, 30% protein and about 10% or so carbohydrates, fruits and a few fruits and a few veggies that are kind of like a extremely low, what we call glycemic impact or index load foods.
So when you mention healthy fats, I'm going to name some things, and you affirm or not.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Grass-fed butter.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Organic olive oil.
Yes, definitely.
Organic coconut oil.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very nice. And there may be a few other oils like avocado oil.
Yeah, avocado, great for cooking. It's a little higher smoke point.
Beautiful.
So it's better than olive oil for grilling and stir frying.
All right. Mm-hmm. And then as it relates to fats that might come from meats, which I'm a big person, avoid anything that's got antibiotics, that's got potential for pesticide and other things, but organic meats, grass-fed meats,
Yes.
free-range chicken, even a few really awesome free-range organic eggs. Does
Yes.
that fit in there too?
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay,
Eggs
as
will
part of a
be
ketogenic?
part of the
Okay.
ketogenic diet, but not preserved meats. And so we don't want the nitrates from the bacon and the sausage and the lunch meats with nitrosamines in it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
when those are cooked, they turn it into nitrosamines, nitrates into nitrosamines, and those can increase risk of cancers.
And you've mentioned something interesting. For those of you that are Google hunters, what Keith mentioned about heating nitrate type foods that can form a carcinogenic thing there's also this idea that I've heard from another doctor that when you're not cooking those things, the nitrates or nitrites have much less of an impact. And I don't know how you feel about that.
From what I'm gathering, yes. And so
Okay.
I'm actually researching that a lot in the medical journals. It's a whole
I'll
new
send you a
other
link
area.
of a cool doctor I saw.
So it's
All
a whole new area, and nitrates, plant nitrates do open up blood vessels, improve blood supply,
Right.
head to toe.
Part of this nitric oxide connection, right? Okay.
Exactly. So it's a whole new area that is just now coming out. And so it's brand new.
Nice. Okay, so you touched on keto from a 30,000 foot. What I heard was you got almost a 2/3 percentage of fats. You've got maybe 20% or so related to the proteins.
Correct.
And then you've got maybe 10% that might function in that a little bit of grain, but primarily maybe some fruits and maybe vegetables that are not high glycemic.
Exactly. So actually probably no grains.
Okay.
And so, and grains can even include corn.
Oh, of course.
Corn, oats, flours, rye. I mean, any kind of a flour, grain, things that we would actually give to, animals, to fatten them up.
Sure.
We don't want that.
Okay. Quick opinion. I have to ask you about this. I haven't dove far enough into this to really truly know. I'm a huge fan, and I don't mind saying their name, of Ezekiel bread and its sprouted grains. Do you know if it seems to me, because you're getting tons of enzyme active activity from sprouted grains, they do take on a very different nature than grains. At the end of the day, could a sprouted grain be something that a person did occasionally as opposed to just the straight? Because again, if you're going to get grains, you're going to get pesticides unless you're going organic.
Correct.
Right.
And so, yes, Ezekiel bread, sprouted breads and grains could be an option. They do have a lower glycemic impact.
Lovely.
And,
Okay.
than traditional bread. Matter of fact, white bread is almost as bad as sugar.
Right.
Glycemic load or index is like 90.
Yep.
Sugar is 100. So, so it's not good. Ezekiel is, and I don't know the exact number, but it's actually lower. It's kind of like a moderate level.
Right.
And so it would be an option. Officially, maybe not a keto.
Right. Okay.
It's going to be a little bit too high.
Okay.
So so it's more like we want to be careful about ultra processed foods,
Right.
UPFs.
Yep.
And so if it comes in a box or a package, it's probably not good. And so it's probably not going to be good for us. And so that's where the bread we have to be careful about. And meat is going to be okay. Fresh fruits and vegetables can be okay, but be careful about that quantity.
Okay. Yeah, and I dare people, though, when it comes to something like an Ezekiel bread, the thing that I dare people about in that is you've got nutrient-dense food versus processed flours, bleached flours, things like that. You've got something that actually can satiate you, where I see people eating bread, it's like, give me another slice, give me another slice, give me another slice. They never get satisfied, right? But I challenge anybody, if you are able to eat something like bread, do Ezekiel bread, and just try half a piece of toast sometime and eat it slow. And I dare you, if you wait 5 or 6 minutes, see if you want another one. You'll feel satisfied. It's amazing. It is amazing. Okay, so we've touched on keto a little bit. Got a few minutes left in this segment. Let's move on to... we know there's a lot of people out there trying to embrace a plant-based diet. And I know, for me in my old days, I've been vegetarian at one point in my life. I was a strict vegetarian, which I guess would be called vegan at one point in time. Then I was a lacto-vegetarian, which I had included some dairy and some clabbered fermented milk products, things like that. And then I was a lacto-ovo-vegetarian for a period of time where I included some eggs, some milk, and then mainly plants, but no meat. I don't believe I functioned really well on any of those diets, Keith, for me personally. But talk a little bit about plant-based, and let's hone in on vegetarian for a minute.
Sure, yeah. So,
somebody that's going to be avoiding meat, I'm concerned about that for some reasons I think we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah. So plant-based is where it's like, probably, maybe very rare to have some animal products. And for protein sources, kind of think of it maybe for protein. And so it's going to be primarily plants, legumes, beans, lentils would be your protein sources. And a few veggies may have some proteins. And then it'd be like, I basically think of it as less than one animal serving a day. It's going to be more plant. That means really more like 2 plant-based proteins and then 1 animal-based protein.
Okay.
And then that's talking about just proteins, but then we still would be getting, the fruits and vegetables, and limited grains. I think we still have to be really careful about the grains. This is a lot of carbohydrates and calories and sugars, in those.
Right. And so because we're from Oklahoma, because you're an old cowboy anyway, you ride the range.
It's Saturday I was helped working cattle. Yes.
Right. So, but again, you've got a lot of Oklahomans thinking, oh, I can go plant-based and I can have that one portion of meat. Now, we're not talking about the 72-ounce cattle rustlers steakhouse, are we? What are we talking about in terms of portion size for people?
So typically, that's a great question. So, it's hard to know for sure how much protein a person needs. But if it were a piece of meat, it typically needs to be about actually the size, and the thickness of the palm of a person's hand.
Interesting.
For one meal.
You told me that one time, the palm method, right?
I'll call it a palm rule.
Palm rule, there you go. Okay.
And so, but it's 1 palm, that's enough meat or animal protein for 1 meal.
Okay.
So actually we need that 3 times a day.
Okay. So, hey, guys, we didn't take all your steaks and your ribeyes and stuff away. We didn't do that.
Right. It may be a choice. So some people may want to do that.
Right.
And so, but yeah, so you do have to have proteins. And so, but a plant-based would be up to 1 animal protein a day, maybe not even that much, but you have to make up for it. And typically legumes and nuts and seeds are going to be your other protein sources.
Okay. I know we could go down a big rabbit trail here with only 3 minutes left in this segment. When you mention legumes, when you mention seeds and nuts, like one of the reasons I shop at natural grocers is because almost everything in the store is organic.
Yes.
And I have found that organic food satisfies me more. And I think it probably satisfies me more because it's a mental thing that I know the pesticides are not there.
I'm doing a good thing for myself.
I'm doing something right. But I go to their freezer section to find organic nuts, organic unblanched almonds, organic cashews, organic macadamias that are not, You know, they have the roasted ones and stuff, but then they have the dry roasted ones, and then they have the raw unblanched ones as well. When people are choosing nuts and things like that, I understand nuts that have oils in them can get rancid very quickly, and that can even be problematic. When you talk about nuts, a lot of people think about, I'll just get my Jif and my Skippy, right? I'll just get my peanut butter.
My mixed nuts.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So let's talk about the do's and don'ts real quick there on that. Where do you want to find your nuts, and what are some good ones to use?
Raw, raw and, or frozen, refrigerated are the best options. Fried, actually, well, let me go back. Roasted nuts. If they have additional oils added, if they're, you see the nuts listed, and then it talks about peanut oil, that's bad. What they did is
oil, ultra bad.
So yeah, exactly.
Bad.
What they did is they might have even just fried those nuts to roast them, and they reuse that oil day after day after day.
So you have rancid oil there.
Exactly.
It's really going to harm your body.
Increased risk of cancer.
Oh yes.
All this kind of stuff. So actually, the mixed nuts with added oils listed on that ingredients label is probably the worst option.
Yeah. So anyway, like I said, and then when I actually get my nuts from natural grocers, I transfer them from the freezer to the refrigerator, and then I just dish them out as I need them, and they stay fresh.
Oh yeah, stay fresh, and
because I like to buy big and save money.
I eat at least one serving of nuts a day, and to help out with proteins. And then I will probably eat some more seeds. Also,
tell me about seeds.
So seeds.
With about a minute left.
Seeds are typically great. Like pumpkin seeds are my favorite. A significant amount of protein. A quarter of a cup, maybe I think maybe 8 grams of protein.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing how much is in
incredible.
that. Yeah.
I didn't realize
and
that.
So and you can get them sprouted or raw. And,
by the way, where do you buy those?
Well, and so where I live out west of Mustang, Yukon, I drive into Yukon, go to Sprouts.
So you can find those.
So I find them there.
Excellent.
And sometimes I have to order them. And so they Sprouts is a little bit small, and they may not have what I need.
Gotcha.
And then I work until 6, so it's kind of hard to find things.
So pumpkin seeds, any other seed?
Seeds, sunflower seeds are okay. Just not there's much research supporting them, but pumpkin seeds are my favorite, and have to admit they're just so satisfying.
Nice.
I just love them.
And now that you've told me about the protein content, of course they're satisfying, right? Because protein satisfies, right?
It does.
Okay. Well, you're hearing a very engaging conversation with Keith Bishop, retired pharmacist, clinical nutritionist, prevailovercancer.com, flourishrx.com, right here on Ultra Life Today. We're talking about all things eating right now. We're not trying to couch it as diet and New Year's resolutions. We're trying to get you excited about making some changes in the way you eat. It's going to very quickly change the way you feel. It's going to change your mental health, your physical health. We're going to get into some other diets. We've covered from a high view keto. We've covered plant-based, which includes some meat protein, at least one meal a day for that. Talked about seeds, nuts. We've even talked about some different breads and kind of avoiding grains as much as possible. I know that's hard to hear, guys, but there's ways to satisfy and eat right where you ultimately are not going to miss those grains like you do now. I'm Josh Bellew. This is Ultra Life Today. We'll be back for another segment with Keith Bishop in just a moment.